125 pounds through 157 for the NCAA Wrestling Championships. It's going to be interesting for Penn State as they have someone who's going for 3 national titles and someone who's trying to go for 4 in 4 years.
You are Locked On Nittany Lions, your daily podcast on the Penn State Nittany Lions, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And thanks so much for making Locked On Nittany Lions your first listen every single day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast. My name is Zach Sako, your host of Locked On Nittany Lions, and I am joined by a very esteemed guest. It is a privilege once again to have back the voice of Penn State wrestling, Jeff Byers, as he's going to be heading out to Tulsa, Oklahoma to cover the NCAA championships over the course of Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, where Penn State has 9 wrestlers made it out of 10. Very impressive. So the team title is going to be at least give Penn State a fair advantage, but it's a matter of how well each of the 9 individually do.
Yeah, and I think, they take 9 guys and I think they really believe that all 9 can get on the podium. And,
right.
That's a special thing when you go out with 9 guys that you truly believe can all score significant points for you. It's one thing you're obviously hoping to get 10 qualified, but to get 9 that you really feel good about the chances, at least, of getting on the podium, that's a pretty significant deal. And, we've been saying all year, I really do think top to bottom, this is Cal's best team yet in terms of the overall depth as well as the top end firepower that's still there.
So this is going to be broken up into 2 episodes, a part 1 and a part 2. We're going to start with the lightweight and move all the way to 157 where Levi Haines is, and then we'll preview 165 to the heavyweight, and back-to-back live episodes here. So if you got a question, if you got a thought, comment here if you're watching on YouTube, but we appreciate wherever you are listening or watching for this episode. So Jeff, we'll get right into it, starting at 125. I mean, Spencer Lee. So this is where we won't spend as much time here because Penn State doesn't have a wrestler. Gary Steen did not advance, struggled in the Big Ten tournament. But this, again, kind of a growing, he's still young, did very well when he was in high school. And then that's just the difference between, being active at the state level when it comes to high school in Pennsylvania, I might add, but then at the NCAA level, it is a little bit different here. But for 125, Spencer Lee out of Iowa, I imagine that this is, again, his bracket to lose, kind of like the Big Ten championships, unless you say otherwise.
No, it definitely feels like that. I will say there have been enough moments this year. He's been thrown to his back twice, once by Marco Vespa at the Jordan Center, and once in the Northwestern Duel. And so I do think that you go into this thing rightfully heavily favoring Spencer Lee, and I certainly am expecting that he'll find his way to the top. But do I think it's out of the realm of possibility that somebody could catch him? No, and I think Patrick Glory, obviously the anticipated opponent in the finals, is a really intriguing matchup because Glory has probably been spending, I mean, I don't know this, but I'm assuming that he's been spending a good bit of the season in the back of his mind kind of preparing for Spencer and figuring out his best strategy to come out on top. And I do think Glory is a terrific wrestler, but there's a lot of really good wrestlers at 125 that have not been able to find a way to beat Spencer Lee. But I do think that finals matchup, if it comes to be, is an intriguing one, and I give Glory, at least a puncher's chance in that matchup.
What is it about Spencer Lee? Because at high school, this isn't by any means just a dream. Like Spencer Lee's worked to this. Spencer Lee's been so competitive from Pennsylvania. It's a shame he didn't go to Penn State. I hate that we're talking about how good an Iowa wrestler he is, but he was almost undefeated in his high school career until Austin DeSanto beat him in his final match. In the championship at the Hershey Giants Center. So it's continued. It's been a constant for him, even to this point now, after multiple years at the college level.
Yeah, he's got a great, obviously, natural feel for the sport. He is as strong as anybody out there. And I think he knows how to use his leverage. I mean, those are probably the two keys to his game, is his strength and just his ability to understand how to score points from that top position, use his strength to be able to leverage his opponent and get those tilts. And he's got a tremendous will to win. Obviously, you don't battle through the injuries that he's battled through and keep coming out on top with just a tremendous competitive spirit.
So that's 125. Pretty simple. Again, Spencer Lee, an overwhelming favorite. It is his bracket to lose, but more interesting for Nittany Lion fans, of course. Now we get to 133, and one of the wrestlers who has the top seed overall is going to have to wait for the prelims, but that is Roman Bravo Young before we officially know his opponent. 133 is going for his third national title. He's just Dayton Fix is somebody that we are expecting from Oklahoma State as the 2 seed to be a challenger, but this is someone that Roman Bravo Young has handled pretty consistently when they have matched up. I mean, go back to last year when he beat him. So RBY for you, Jeff, how have you seen him get even better from someone who won last year to now this point in time? How the fact is he better in 2023?
Yeah, he really has just learned his craft extremely well. I think he is very efficient now with his movements. He really understands, how to capitalize on the opportunities when they are there. He's always had that quickness, but it's his ability now to use that quickness and to understand how to use that quickness that I think has really separated him. I will say Dayton Fix and Roman are just two elite athletes. Dayton Fix is looking to get to his 4th NCAA finals. That is a remarkable feat, and he'll be trying to avoid kind of becoming the Buffalo Bills, I guess, if you will, at 133. Where we've never had a wrestler advance to 4 finals and never win a title. And that is, I think at least a possibility here for him this year. I do think Dayton is a really hard out for Roman or for anybody. And, the fact that Roman has beaten him twice alone is truly an astounding accomplishment by Roman Bravo Young. If he is able to beat him a third time, again, to me, it just solidifies kind of a legendary status in my mind for Roman Bravo Young and what he did in his collegiate career. And Vito Arujau is a terrific athlete as well for Cornell. But I think at the end of the day, Roman and Dayton are just, to me, they are probably 2 of the 5-6 wrestlers that I would put up there for best pound for pound wrestlers in the country. They just happen to be at the same weight. And, it's been an unfortunate situation, I think, for Dayton Fix the last 2 years because, again, he's just a phenom in his own right. It's just that Roman has really just kind of perfected what it is that he needs to do and how to use his game to its full advantage. But I do think that's going to be, to me, that's one of the most highly anticipated finals matchups, again, should it occur out in Tulsa.
Is there anybody that could challenge one of these two? I mean, particularly RBY, because we care about him more, given that this is a Nittany Lions show. But is there anybody on either side of the bracket that could really pull off a surprise?
Yeah, I mean, Arujau to me, again, is the 3rd seed and would meet Fix in the semis. Right. And again, I think he is a really, really good wrestler, very talented. I just don't think Dayton Fix or Roman, when the chips are on the table, are going to lose to anybody except for each other. You never say never. I mean, it's it's sports and we see crazy things happen. And is it possible Roman gets caught somewhere? Yeah, of course, that's always a possibility. But boy, going in, it is really hard to see, to me, how the finals matchup that everybody's anticipating doesn't come to be between Dayton Fix and Roman Bravo Young.
It is a Locked On Nittany Lions. Before we move to 141 pounds, where Beau Bartlett is the 6th seed, let's have a word from our sponsor of today's show, and that is Built Bar. Are you looking for a delicious treat, but you don't want all of the fat and calories? Then you got to try a Built Bar. We just got, I know my goal is to eat a little healthier this year. And if you're like me, where you want to eat healthier, but you don't want to compromise the taste, then man, I've got just the thing for you. You got to try Built. With Built, healthy is actually tasty. Seriously, they're so delicious. You won't think they're good for you. And what makes Built Bars so good? Well, for starters, they're covered in 100% real chocolate. That is right, real chocolate. And they come in delicious flavors like churro, peanut butter brownie, and coconut almond. I'm not sure how Built does it, but these bars taste like a candy bar while maintaining amazing macros. And what's even better is they are healthy. Just 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, and a whopping 17 grams of protein. And now you don't need to wait around to get a box. For years, we've been talking about ordering your Built bars at Built.com. Now you can get them at your local Walmart or Sam's Club. That is right. Head to your nearest Walmart today, walk to the pharmacy section, and grab yourself a box of Built bars. You can pick up a 4-bar box of cookies and cream, double chocolate, or coconut puffs. And if you're close to Sam's Club, run in, grab a box of a 13-bar box with hit flavors like brownie batter and churro. You can thank me later. And once again, thanks so much for making Locked On Nittany Lions your first listen and watch every single day. Grab your bracket and go listen to Locked On College Basketball Bracket Breakdown. That is right. The NCAA tournament is out for men's basketball with national analysis and the insights from local experts at Locked On. The Locked On College Basketball Breakdown has everything you need to make the most informed decisions on your bracket. Find the episode on Locked On College Basketball wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. I'm Zach Sako with the voice of Penn State Wrestling, Jeff Byers. Moved to 141, and again, this is part one of a two-part show, as we're going to preview all 10 weight classes for the NCAA championships. RBY is the clear-cut favorite at 133, so is Spencer Lee at 125. 141. There's a lot of talent here. Beau Bartlett's the 6th seed, somebody that is kind of considered, should be definitely considered if you don't already, but the wrestling experts say that he is a dark horse contender as someone who did come up short in the Big Ten championships, but now he's here as the 6th seed. This 141 class, I really don't have it. For me personally, Real Woods is the favorite, being the 1 seed from Iowa, but I don't really see a clear-cut this is the matchup I'm expecting in the finals. I think, there's Matthews from Pitt. Beau Bartlett at the 6th seed is going to make some noise. Jeff, 141 for me is completely wide open. What do you say?
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting weight. I mean, Real Woods and Andrew Lira's, the Northern Colorado kid, have been both unbeaten during the season to this point. And if that is the finals matchup, I do think it's a really intriguing one. You have a kid from one of the all-time powerhouses in college wrestling, and Northern Colorado, which has some talent on the roster this season, but would be looking for its first ever national champion, and that would be just kind of a neat storyline if it happens. But I do think there are a lot of guys here that could make a run, and Beau Bartlett being one of them. I will say Beau has, I think, probably as tough a path as any Nittany Lion to getting to the finals and maybe even just to All-America honors. In the second round, he'll face, assuming he wins the first round matchup, he would face likely Clay Carlson of South Dakota State, who was a former All-American. And then if he does win that one, then he does get Cole Matthews. And I think that's a really intriguing matchup, Bartlett and Matthews. And, it's one that I think Beau is certainly capable of winning. But I think he's got to be able to go out and generate his offense, which is what I think he's done a much better job of over the last 6 weeks. So I think, I think there's a path there for Beau Bartlett, and I think he could get all the way to the finals. I think he would be, it would be a contrast in styles if he and Alirez were to meet in the semifinals. Sure. And again, I think all 3 of those potential matchups are just really intriguing from Beau Bartlett's standpoint and Penn State's view, because I think Beau, I kind of look at it like the Penn State basketball team out at the Big Ten tournament. It's, can you produce and get enough on the board to prevail? And I think all 3 of those potential matchups are very tough, but I also think they're all winnable with the way Beau Bartlett has, in my mind, kind of turned the corner here. And, the lone loss of the Big Tens, I think Brock Hardy is another one that he's right there. So probably those top 6-7 guys, again, on a given day. I don't think there's going to be a whole lot that separates these guys from the quarterfinals in. I don't think you're going to see major decisions or bonus point wins by these guys once you get to the quarterfinals. It's going to be, can you get one more takedown than your opponent or find a way to advance? And, going into the tournament, I like Beau Bartlett's chances, but I also don't think it's, a crazy notion to say that he might not All-American either. I mean, I think that's the situation for Beau going into this thing is, I could see him getting all the way to the finals, or I could see him going, 2-2 or 3-2 and not getting on the podium. I do like the way he's wrestling, though, and I like where his head's at right now. And I think he's got a very good chance of placing higher than that number 6 seed at the tournament.
Yeah, all the potential in the world, and he's gotten so much better, especially moving back to the comfortability of 141. He was kind of wrestling at an unnatural weight class at 149, but the fact that he was as competitive as he was just a year ago in a weight class that wasn't his shows how talented of a wrestler he is. And then to cut back down, I imagine that was very easy for him. For Real Woods, I think he's going to have at least an easy time getting to the quarterfinals and even ultimately the semifinals. What is going to be interesting to me is he going to face a Ryan Jack, who honestly I think could give him fits, the number 5 seed from NC State, who's 20-3.
Yeah, I think that matchup between Jack and Hardy potentially in the quarterfinals is another one of those just kind of you need to watch if you're a wrestling fan type of bouts. And there's a whole lot of those, I think, in this tournament. Really from the second round in, but certainly in the quarterfinals, there are just a lot of matchups that I think could be really, really exciting and kind of tough to predict. I've been really impressed with Real Woods, though, and the way he has jumped levels, if you will, with his game since transferring from Stanford. I do think that Iowa room has been good for him. I think he has figured a couple of little things out, adjustments that he's made. He is really good with his baseline defense now. And he's another one of those that is just really efficient now with his scoring. Not a lot of wasted movement. There's a specific idea that he has when he's out there on how he's going to go about scoring. And he just executes it as well as anybody in the weight this year. So I do think he's rightfully the favorite. But again, I don't think it's it would be shocking to see somebody else on top of the podium out in Tulsa.
And then 149, we'll have Levi Haines at 157, which we will wrap up part 1 with before we move to part 2 and preview 165 through the heavyweight, and then talk a little bit about the team competition, even though Penn State is, I imagine, an overwhelming favorite for a lot of people here, but I guess Penn State is sending 9 very talented wrestlers to Tulsa. But at 149, Shayne Van Ness is the 13 seed, so he's going to have a tough time definitely weaving his way through this bracket. And of course, the 149 championship is headlined by Yianni Diakomihalis out of Cornell, who I think is very, very confident wrestler. Whatever your opinion of him is personally, he definitely has the work ethic to back it up. But what I thought that one loss that Diakomihalis had was to Gomez out of Wisconsin. And you would think that Gomez would be the 2 seed here. And then he's kind of fallen a little back. He's not as high up in the seeding this time around. But this is another class that, so Diakomihalis is the favorite at 149, but it's very crowded with loads and loads of talent outside of just Shayne Van Ness at third. The fact that Van Ness is 13 says it all.
Yeah, Gomez is injured, and in fairness to him, a healthy Gomez, I think, would be really exciting in this tournament and in this bracket. But with the injuries, I mean, he just did not look anything like himself at the Big Ten tournament. And even with that, it wasn't like he wrestled awful. But, when he's healthy, he is just so dangerous and can certainly go with anybody. And I think that would have been, potentially a very exciting matchup between he and Diakomihalis. I do think Yianni's just at a little different level, but Sammy Sasso continues to get better and better, has a knack for winning the close matches. That is certainly the expected matchup in the finals. But this is another weight class where I think, there's a lot of kids that are really good that are coming on, and Shayne Van Ness is certainly one of them. To me, the key for Van Ness in this tournament will be that potential second round matchup, assuming he beats Johnny Levitt, who he did beat early in the season. And I think, we'll be able to handle at the national tournament, is that second round matchup with the number 4 seed Caleb Henson of Virginia Tech. I think it works to Shayne's advantage that they have not wrestled before this season, because I think Van Ness, with his aggressiveness, if you haven't faced it before, I think it's a little alarming for guys that aren't used to going hard for 7 minutes. I'm not saying that Henson isn't a guy that goes hard for 7 minutes, but I just think that is a really intriguing matchup. And I think if you're looking for a bout where, maybe Penn State can make some noise on the upset front early in this tournament on the first day, I would circle that bout as a potential upset win for Penn State. And we keep talking about it within the program. There's just that feeling that if Shayne Van Ness can just get over the hump against one of those top 6-8 guys,
sure,
that then look out, because then you get that confidence under your belt. Now you know how to win those bouts, and who knows what he's capable of doing. And I'm just kind of circling that bout as a potential, not certainly no guarantees there. Henson is an outstanding wrestler and is the number 4 seed for a reason. But I just think if Shayne Van Ness can get the win there, then all of a sudden this tournament becomes really intriguing for him and Penn State at 149 to see, how far he can take it and what kind of damage he can do in the weight class.
And just from an entertainment standpoint, I really want him to beat Henson, not from the fact of it's an upset, but most likely he'd get that rematch of one that went to sudden victory against, or it went down to the wire anyway, against Paniro Johnson out of Iowa State.
Yep, and I think that's one that he would love to have back. I think if it had been a different official, I think you might have had that thing tied up with some stall calls. And I think, again, those two are two of the rising stars at the weight class. I mean, I think the future for both of those young men is very bright. And regardless of what happens at this year's tournament, I know Paniro has been pretty open about, hey, I want to win it this year. And he certainly has that type of talent. But I really think Shayne Van Ness does too. And I know he's a 13 seed and he hasn't had that breakthrough win yet. But I just think if he can get it, and that's a big if, then I think, again, he can be really dangerous, and I think he could make a real run out in Tulsa.
And I know everyone's excited for Levi Haines because he's a true freshman at the weight class of 157. Before we move there, another word from today's sponsor of our show, and that is FanDuel Sportsbook, America's #1 sportsbook. The middle of the NBA season is here, the midway point, and now's the perfect time to download FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because new customers get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's bonus bets back if your first bet does not win. So all you got to do is download the FanDuel Sportsbook app. It's safe, secure, super easy to use. Then you can bet on everything from your favorite NBA bets, spread, money line, total, to player props like points, rebounds, and assists, and exclusive bets like the 2x3, 2 3-pointers scored in the first 3 minutes. Plus, FanDuel even lets you combine your bets for a chance at a bigger payout with the same game parlay. So don't miss your chance to get the no sweat first bet up to $1,000 in bonus bets back when you go to FanDuel.com/lockedon. That is FanDuel.com/lockedon to learn more. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. That is Jeff Byers over on the other side, the voice of Penn State wrestling. And 157, this is going to conclude part one once we go through Levi Haines and previewing this bracket. This is another insanely talented one. It starts with Austin O'Connor of North Carolina at the top. And then Levi Haines is the 2 seed after an incredible Big Ten championship performance, one of which where he beat a veteran Peyton Robb out of Nebraska. That's an 18-year-old up against a 23-year-old Peyton Robb to do that move, to go through that scramble, and to come away with the sudden victory in the championship there. So for Haines to do something like that, I think the wrestling world was shocked by it, because it's like, yes, it's a Penn State wrestler. Don't get all of us wrong, but he's still a true freshman. And Peyton Robb has 5 years of wrestling experience on him, and Haines went toe to toe with him the entire time, and then ultimately beat him in sudden victory. So Jeff, recap that one, because you called it in real time. You were there to see it out in Michigan. Just the fire that Haines has and the development that he's gone through to get to this point so quickly.
And he just has that ability to wrestle through situations, which, the great ones do. And I think, a lot of kids, especially freshmen, in that situation, when the initial takedown, and it was, debatable whether or not there should have been a takedown,
Right.
When they kind of first hit the mat. I think a lot of kids are, looking at the officials saying, "Oh, come on!" And Levi just obviously kept wrestling hard. And yeah, what I think what he did with that takedown and being able to hike Rob up and bring him down to the mat is as impressive as anything I've seen in college wrestling this season. When you take into account, as you said, it's a true freshman against the fifth-year kid in Peyton Robb. And Rob is on top of his game right now. It's not just that he's a fifth-year guy. It's a fifth-year guy that has really come into his own this season and had, pretty much dominated the weight class up until that point. So, I will say, going back to kind of must-see wrestling, the potential quarterfinal matchup here between Levi Haines and Bryce Andonian. Andonian at Virginia Tech, to me, was as exciting as any wrestler in the field last year at the NCAA tournament. If you asked me to the one guy who wasn't a Penn Stater who I was trying to keep my eyes on when he was out on the mat, it was Andonian. He is just an electrifying wrestler and has a lot of big moves. And I think the potential, and it could very well end up being a 2-1 bout, but the potential for a high-scoring affair there is good, because both those guys like to let it fly, and they're obviously both really talented kids. Levi Haines just has a different gear to him, an ability to, it's that competitive drive, but it's also just the way he embraces the opportunity to compete. He loves the big challenges, and he's been like that since he was a young boy learning the sport.
Right.
And obviously, I mean, he's had some great tutelage along the way, but he's a guy that has, is the combination that you're always dreaming of. And Penn State's been very fortunate to have many of them here under Cale Sanderson, but where you have a guy who has tremendous God-given ability, and you combine that with a work ethic and a passion for the sport. And, that's the thing. Levi's attitude is just, you can't wipe the smile off that kid's face. He loves being able to come to the room. He loves being part of this team. And he loves a chance to get out there and test his mettle against other top-ranked wrestlers. I think he has as good a chance as anybody in the field. This is another weight class. It's probably pretty open. Maybe not as many guys that could win it all as at 197, but I would say there's probably at least 5 guys here that I would say it's not unrealistic to think if they get on a roll that they could come out on top. But I think the potential path here for Levi Haines would be Andonian in the quarterfinals, Peyton Robb, who again was number 1 all season until Levi beat him in the semifinals, and then Austin O'Connor, a former national champion for North Carolina at 149, now up at 157 in the finals. If that ends up being the path, and if Levi is able to survive that and win the championship, I would argue that is as impressive of a tournament in terms of individuals that you're beating as anybody could have, with the possible exception of 165, where you have 3 champions and 4 NCAA finalists in that field. But that would be a remarkable run for Levi Haines if he does face those three and knocks off those three in the quarterfinals, semis, and finals. That's it would solidify Levi Haines as already a legendary figure in the sport in just his freshman season.
Absolutely. And there's plenty more legendary names in the next part 2 of our preview for the NCAA championships, because there's so much happening that we need to split this up into 2. So there will be another live episode on the way here to preview 165 through the heavyweights. So stick around. Again, thanks for making Locked On Nittany Lions your first listen and watch every single day. Make sure you check out Locked On College Basketball, because the brackets are out for both the men and women. Everything you need to know about college basketball in one place. Plus, you get to hear from big name experts, insiders, players, and coaches. That is Locked On College Basketball, available on YouTube and wherever you get your podcast. Jeff, thanks so much for doing part 1 here. Let's catch up right now on the other side to talk about part 2 and 165 through heavyweight. Appreciate the time.
Sounds good. Thanks.